Welcome to Ratchet Book Club, where we read hood classics and good classics. I'm Derek. 916-633-1537, Ratchet and Ratchet at gmail.com, Ratchet Book Club on Twitter, Ratchet Book Club on Facebook. Welcome to Ratchet Book Club, where we read hood classics and good classics. I'm Derek. 916-633-1537, Ratchet and Ratchet at gmail.com, Ratchet Book Club on Twitter, Ratchet Book Club on Facebook. There's a saying, fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me, can't get fooled again. So, children's books. I'm going to read a children's book because I'm going to end up blazing through the rest of the messy lives of NBA wives. But while I was on Facebook one day, I saw a post that was talking about books that every Mensa or mega student or whatever they called the kids who were in the advanced classes for math and science, MESA, I think, in elementary school were called. But there were 6 books that all of them had read, and I had only read 4 of them. And I read all 4 of them on this show. It's Maniac McGee, Holes, Sideways Stories from Wayside School, which I didn't think it was a Mesa book, but, I just thought it was a fun book. But I didn't think Holes was either. I just thought it was a great book. So what do I know? And then Bridge to Terabithia. Now, while I was talking about those with 2 of my friends and 2 listeners of the show, one of them said that she really enjoyed another book that was on this list, because again, there's 6 of them, called Number the Stars, and begged me to read Number the Stars. Was like, I'll sponsor it. Can you please read Number the Stars? Look, y'all, I have traumas. The last time that somebody asked me to read a children's book, the last time somebody recommended a children's book, the last time somebody requested a children's book here on Ratchet Book Club, I ended up snot bubbling my way through Bridge to Terabithia. So, not really looking forward to snot bubbling anymore. Don't want to know what happens in this book, because if there is snot bubbling, I'm going to walk into it organically. But yeah, what George Bush said before the dude threw the shoe at his face. I feel like he should have said that after the dude threw the shoe at his face. Like, fool me one time. Bah! Oh, fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me can't get fooled again. But I love the author. Lois Lowry has made some of my favorite books. I believe. I'm just saying that. Like, I know I'm pretty sure that she's made some of my favorite books. I just can't remember what they were because I was a kid. But I'm pretty sure she made There's a Bat in Bunk 5. And that's more than enough for me, because when I was a kid, I loved that book. I love a lot of books that are just like, why the heck would you love that book? But it's okay. So let me see. What else has she done? I know that I read Anastasia Krupnik. I didn't like it. No, I did like it because I love the ones. That's where I know her from. Her books, she wrote all about Sam, who was Anastasia Krupnik's little brother. And so Sam, they wrote about him in 1988, and I read that in like 89. And then I read Attaboy Sam, and I loved those books. I loved that series of books. So that's where I know her from. Okay, I might have to read all about Sam again. I forgot all about that book, but I knew I loved it. I knew I loved her for a reason. Let's put it like that. And so here we are. However, snot bubbles, don't want to do it. I don't want it. It's the cleanup. It takes a while. A lot of snot. A lot of snot. So if I could avoid the snot bubbles, that would be perfect. But if not, it happens, but I'd rather not. Also, my daughter's mom had a song that, is kind of apropos for the moment before I jump into this book. Everybody's doing it, picking in their noses and chewing it. They say it's candy, but it's not. Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. You're welcome, Anissa. Chapter 1. Let me be honest with you. Last time I read a book that Anissa requested, it was Fly Girl, and I was stuck on that pedophilic. Chapter 1. Why are you running? I'll race you to the corner, Ellen. Oh no. The last time a book started off with kids racing, the little girl drowned. That was Bridget Terabithia. Okay, it's not going to be the same. I'm not going to get hit by the same lightning bolt twice. I might get hit by lightning twice, but not the same lightning bolt twice. That's literally impossible. Like the lightning bolt can't come back and be like, you're still here. Hit you again. I'll race you to the corner, Ellen. Anna Marie adjusted the thick leather pack on her back so that her school books balanced evenly. Ready? She looked at her best friend. Ellen made a face. No, she said, laughing. You know I can't beat you. My legs aren't as long. Can't we just walk like civilized people? She was a stocky 10-year-old, unlike lanky Anne Marie. We have to practice for the athletic meet on Friday. I know I'm going to win the girls' race this week. I was second last week, but I've been practicing every day. Come on, Ellen, Anne Marie pleaded, eyeing the distance to the next corner of the Copenhagen street. Please? Ellen hesitated, then nodded and shifted her own rucksack of books against her shoulders. Oh, all right. Ready, she said. Go, shouted Anne-Marie, and the two girls were off, racing along the residential sidewalk. Anne-Marie's silvery blonde hair flew behind her, and Ellen's dark pigtails bounced against her shoulders. Okay, Anne-Marie's going to die. Anne-Marie's going to die at some point in this book. I'm just calling my shot. I used to do this a lot more. Usually I do it with books that I don't know. I did it with, Messy Lives of NBA Wives, and I was right that girl's pregnant. So I'm calling it. She's going to die. The reason why I know she's going to die is because she has silvery blonde hair. Whenever they put a white girl in a book and they describe her hair as silvery blonde, she's going to die. Whenever they make her hair something special or unique or different, she's going to die. And also, is it that difficult to have black people in these books? You say she's a brunette. I know she's not black because y'all don't know that black folks can have brown hair. Guess what? My mama did. It's always blonde or brunette. There's never any redheads. Shout out to the redheads. But shout out to the black people, the Asian folks, the Latinx folks. Put them in a book. We read too. Wait for me, wailed little Kirsty. Left behind, but the two older girls weren't listening. Anne-Marie outdistanced her friend quickly. Even though one of her shoes came untied as she sped along the street called Oster Brigade, past the small shops and cafes of her neighborhood here in northeast Copenhagen. Okay, guess number 2. This is like the 40s, and the Nazis are going to come. The Nazis are going to come, and that's not funny. The Nazis are going to come, and they're going to take her whole family. And then they're going to be in a concentration camp. And yeah. Past the small shops and cafes of her neighborhood here in northeast Copenhagen. Laughing, she skirted an elderly lady in black who carried a shopping bag made of string. I understand why you wouldn't have black people in this book. Black people can't cope in Copenhagen. They ain't coping in Copenhagen. They might be. I don't know. Probably. Doubtful. Demographics, low. Like there's probably like 3 black people per town. Low people. A young woman pushing a baby in a carriage moved aside to make way. The corner was just ahead. Oh yeah, if there's carriages, it's like the 40s. Anne-Marie looked up, panting, just as she reached the corner. Her laughter stopped. Her heart seemed to skip a beat. Halt! The soldier ordered in a stern voice. The German word was as familiar as it was frightening. Told you so. Anne-Marie had heard it often enough before, but it had never been directed at her until now. Behind her, Ellen also slowed and stopped. Far back, little Kirsty was plodding along, her face in a pout because the girls hadn't waited for her. Anne-Marie stared up. There were 2 of them. That meant 2 helmets, 2 sets of cold eyes glaring at her, and 4 tall, shiny boots planted firmly on the sidewalk, blocking her path to home. And it meant 2 rifles, gripped in the hands of the soldiers. She stared at the rifles first. Then finally, she looked into the face of the soldier who had ordered her to stop. I don't do German accents, but if I did, it would be, why are you running? Running. Why are you running? Why are you running? That's awful. That is so bad. The harsh voice said. His Danish was very poor. 3 years, Anna Marie thought with contempt. 3 years they've been in our country, and they still can't speak our language. I was racing with my friend, she answered politely. We have races at school every Friday, and I want to do well, so I... Her voice trailed away, the sentence unfinished. Don't talk too much, she told herself. Just answer them, that's all. Hold on, I'm going to check something real quick. Ellen's going to die. Change that up a bit. Ellen's going to die because Anna Marie looks like an Aryan. Okay. All right. She glanced back. Ellen was motionless on the sidewalk, a few yards behind her. Further back, Kirsty was still sulking and walking slowly towards the corner. Nearby, a woman had come to the doorway of a shop and was standing silently, watching. One of the soldiers, the taller one, moved towards her. Anna Marie recognized him as the one she and Ellen always called, in whispers, the giraffe, because of his height and the long neck that extended from his stiff collar. He and his partner were always on this corner. He prodded the corner of her backpack with the stock of his rifle. Anne Marie trembled. What is in here? He asked loudly. See, when I try and do a German accent, which I won't anymore, I'm just telling you right now, I think I sound more like Ivan Drago, who was Russian. So I won't. From the corner of her eye, which was a great book, she saw the shopkeeper move quietly back into the shadows of the doorway, out of sight. School books, she answered truthfully. Are you a good student? The soldier asked. He seemed to be sneering. Yes. What is your name? Anna Marie Johansson. Johansson? Scarlett Johansson? Scarlett Johansson, right? Johansson? Scarlett Johansson? Okay. So the Smurfs. I know, right? The Smurfs had a character named Johan. Johan only hung out with Smurfs. I didn't get it either. That was when the Smurfs jumped the broom. Like, they had Johan in there. And then they brought out all them little kid Smurfs. Like, where are all these little kid Smurfs coming from, homie? There's only one lady in town. And she seems, I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Like, is Smurfette older than all the rest of the Smurfs? Did Smurfette birth all them other Smurfs, her and Papa Smurf? Like, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. This is also a children's book. I shouldn't be talking about this, but I'm not cussing. You know, where they all come from? There's only one lady in the entire town. Just asking. These are good questions. I'm proud of myself. Your friend, is she a good student too? He was looking beyond her, at Ellen, who hadn't moved. Anna Marie looked back too, and saw that Ellen's face, usually rosy-cheeked, was pale, and her dark eyes were wide. She nodded at the soldier. Better than me, she said. What is her name? Ellen. And who is this? He asked, looking at Anna Marie's side. Kirsty had appeared there suddenly, scowling at everyone. My little sister. She reached down for Kirsty's hand, but Kirsty, always stubborn, refused it and put her hands on her hips defiantly. The soldier reached down and stroked her little sister's short, tangled curls. Why? Keep your hands to yourself, man. Like, what? No. Stand still, Kirsty, Anna Marie ordered silently. It's A-N-N-E Marie, but I just keep saying Anna Marie, and I'm not going to stop because I know I'll go back to it later on, even if I try and stop. So, Anna Marie. It should be Anne Marie. It should. I'm going to try harder. I will, because it's Anne Marie, and I want to be true to the book. Praying that somehow the obstinate 5-year-old will receive the message. But Kirsty reached up and pushed the soldier's hand away. If I could say Kirsty, I could say Anne Marie. Don't, she said loudly. Both soldiers began to laugh. They spoke to each other in rapid German that Anne Marie couldn't understand. She is pretty, like my own little girl, the tall one said in a more pleasant voice. Anne Marie tried to smile politely. Go home, all of you. Go study your school books, and don't run. You look like hoodlums when you run. All of you? There's only 3 of them. The 2 soldiers turned away. Quickly, Anne-Marie reached down again and grabbed her sister's hand before Kirsty could resist. Hurrying the little girl along, she rounded the corner. In a moment, Ellen was beside her. They walked quickly, not speaking, with Kirsty between them, towards the large apartment building where both families lived. When they were almost home, Ellen whispered suddenly, "I was so scared." "Me too," Anne-Marie whispered back. As they turned to enter their building, both girls looked straight ahead, toward the door. They did it purposefully, so they wouldn't catch the eyes or the attention of 2 more soldiers, who stood with their guns on this corner as well. Kirsty scurried ahead of them through the door, chattering about the picture she was bringing home from kindergarten to show Mama. For Kirsty, the soldiers were simply part of the landscape, something that had always been there, on every corner, as unimportant as lampposts, throughout her remembered life. "Are you going to tell your mother?" Ellen asked Anne-Marie as they trudged together up the stairs. "I'm not. My mother will be upset." "No, I won't either. Mama would probably scold me for running on the street." She said goodbye to Ellen on the 2nd floor, where Ellen lived, and continued on to the 3rd, practicing in her mind a cheerful greeting for her mother. A smile, a description of today's spelling test, in which she had done well. But she was too late. Kirsty had gotten there first. "And he poked Anne-Marie's school bag with his gun, and then he grabbed my hair," Kirsty was chattering as she took off her sweater in the middle of the apartment living room. "But I wasn't scared. Anne-Marie was, and Ellen too, but not me." Miss Johansson rose quickly from the chair by the window where she had been sitting. Miss Rosen, Ellen's mother, was there too, in the opposite chair. Jewish. They had been having coffee together. I don't know. Is it just... I don't know. You could have the name Rosen and not be Jewish, right? Like, Judaism, isn't that a religion? Like, wait.
Mm-hmm.
Is Judaism a religion or a nationality?
Judaism is the religion of the Jewish people. This answer is from the Canadian Encyclopedia Car.
So,
by the way, if you have another request, you don't need to say Siri before you ask it.
So, where do Jewish people originate from?
I found 2, Israel and Kingdom of Judah.
Where is the Kingdom of Judah located?
The Kingdom of Judah was an Israelite kingdom of the southern Levant during the Iron Age. Would you like to hear more?
So, Israelites are Jewish people, which, okay, good to know. The more I know, like, cool. So your name does indicate, because all this time I just thought that Jewish people were, I don't know, I thought it was like Jewish and Christian. Like, I didn't even think about Judah. Like, I've read the Bible, the Lion of Judah and all that. I'm aware of it, kind of, but I didn't think about it like that. So he was hating on them, not for their religion, but because of their last names, essentially, and the way they looked. Like, okay, so Rosen is a Jewish last name, officially. And I'm sorry for all y'all who already knew this and are looking at me like you're an idiot, but how else am I supposed to learn? Like, seriously. Okay. They had been having coffee together, as they did many afternoons. Of course, it wasn't really coffee, though the mother still called it that. Having coffee. There had been no real coffee in Copenhagen since the beginning of the Nazi occupation. Not even any real tea. The mother sipped at hot water flavored with herbs. "Anne-Marie, what happened? What is Kirsty talking about?" her mother asked anxiously. "Where's Ellen?" Miss Rosen had a frightened look. "Ellen's in your apartment. She didn't realize you were here," Anne-Marie explained. "Don't worry, it wasn't anything. It was the 2 soldiers who sat in the corner of..." They say it's Esther Brogadi, but it really looks like Osterbrogade. And I know when y'all read this as little kids, y'all was probably like, it's Osterbrogade with a 0. But it's Esther Brogadi. You've seen them. You know, the tall one with the long neck, the one who looks like a silly giraffe. She told her mother and Miss Rosen of the incident, trying to make it sound humorous and unimportant, but their uneasy looks didn't change. I slapped his hand and shouted at him, Kirsty announced importantly. No, she didn't, Mama. Anne-Marie reassured her mother. She's exaggerating as she always does. Miss Johansson moved to the window and looked down to the street below. The Copenhagen neighborhood was quiet. It looked the same as always. People coming and going from the shops, children to play, the soldiers on the corner. She spoke in a low voice to Ellen's mother. They must be edgy because of the latest resistance incidents. Did you read in De Free Danske about the bombings in Hillerød and Norrebo? I know that's not how they're said. Just leave me alone. Although she pretended to be absorbed in unpacking her school books, Anne-Marie listened, and she knew what her mother was referring to. De Free Danske, the Free Danes, was an illegal newspaper. Peter Nielsen brought it to them occasionally, carefully folded and hidden among ordinary books and papers, and Mama always burned it after she and Papa had read it. But Anne-Marie had heard Mama and Papa talk, sometimes at night, about the news they received that way. News of sabotage against the Nazis, bombs hidden and exploded in the factories that produced war materials, and industrial railroad lines damaged so goods couldn't be transported. And she knew what resistance meant. Papa had explained when she overheard the word and asked. The resistance fighters were Danish people. No one knew who, because they were very secret, who were determined to bring harm to the Nazis however they could. They damaged the German trucks and cars and bombed their factories. They were very brave. Sometimes they were caught and killed. I must go and speak to Ellen, Miss Rosen said, moving towards the door. You girls walk a different way to school tomorrow. Promise me, Anne-Marie. And Ellen will promise too. I mean, seriously. Anne-Marie, why are you, okay, these kids, she seems to know the danger that they're in. Maybe some extent, maybe not a huge extent, but to some extent she understands the danger that they're in. Why don't y'all tell them, look, me personally, this is me, again, I don't know how Ellen is just walking in front of these officers in the first place. I mean, even hanging back. How? What are we doing here? I guess that's why they didn't ask what Ellen's last name was yet. And her mom is just living in an apartment. They haven't searched all the apartments yet. This book ain't gonna make me cry. We will, Miss Rosen, but what does it matter? There are German soldiers on every corner. They'll remember your faces, Miss Rosen said, turning in the doorway to the hall. It's important to be one of the crowd, always. Be one of many. Be sure that they never have reason to remember your face. She disappeared into the hall and closed the door behind her. He'll remember my face, Mama, Kirsty announced happily, because he said I looked like his little girl. He said I was pretty. If he has such a pretty little girl, why doesn't he go back to her like a good father? Miss Johansson murmured, stroking Kirsty's cheek. Why doesn't he go back to his own country? Mama, is there anything to eat? Anne-Marie asked, hoping to take her mother's mind away from the soldiers. Take some bread and give a piece to your sister. With butter? Kirsty asked hopefully. No butter, her mother replied. You know that. Kirsty sighed as Anne-Marie went to the bread box in the kitchen. I wish I could have a cupcake, she said. A big yellow cupcake with pink frosting. Her mother laughed. For a little girl, you have a long memory, she told Kirsty. There hasn't been any butter or sugar for cupcakes in a long time. A year at least. When will there be cupcakes again? When the war ends, Miss Johansson said. She glanced through the window, down to the street corner where the soldiers stood, their faces impassive beneath the metal helmets. When the soldiers leave. Chapter 2. Who is the man who rides past? Tell me a story, Anne-Marie, begged Kirsty as she snuggled beside her sister in the big bed they shared. Tell me a fairy tale. Anne-Marie smiled and wrapped her arms around her little sister in the dark. All Danish children grew up familiar with fairy tales. Hans Christian Andersen, the most famous of the tale-tellers, had been Danish himself. Do you want the one about the Little Mermaid? That one had always been Anne-Marie's own favorite. But Kirsty said no. Tell me one that starts with a king and a queen, and they have a beautiful daughter. All right. Once upon a time there was a king, Anne-Marie began. And a queen, whispered Kirsty. Don't forget the queen. And a queen. They lived together in a wonderful palace, and... Was the palace called Amalienburg? Kirsty asked sleepily. Shh. Don't keep interrupting or I'll never finish the story. No, it wasn't Amalienburg. It was a pretend palace. Anne-Marie talked on, making up a story of a king and queen and their beautiful daughter, Princess Kirsten. She sprinkled her tale with formal balls, fabulous gold-trimmed gowns, and feasts of pink frosted cupcakes, until Kirsty's deep, even breathing told her that her sister was sound asleep. She stopped and waited for a moment, half expecting Kirsty to murmur, "Then what happened?" But Kirsty was still. Anne-Marie's thoughts turned to the real king, Christian X, and the real palace, Amalienburg, where he lived, in the center of Copenhagen. How the people of Denmark loved King Christian. He was not like fairy tale kings, who seemed to stand on balconies giving orders to subjects, or who sat on golden thrones demanding to be entertained and looking for suitable husbands for their daughters. King Christian was a real human being, with a serious, kind face. She had seen him often, when she was younger. Each morning, he had come from the palace on his horse, Jubilee, and ridden alone through the streets of Copenhagen, greeting its people. Sometimes, when Anne-Marie was a little girl, her older sister, Lise, had taken her to stand on the sidewalk so she could wave to King Christian. Sometimes, he would wave back to the two of them and smiled. Now you are special forever, Lise had told her once, because you have been greeted by a king. Anne-Marie turned her head on the pillow and stared through the partly open curtains of the window into the dim September night. Thinking of Lise, her solemn, lovely sister, always made her sad. So she turned her thoughts again to the king, who was still alive, as Lise was not. She remembered a story that Papa had told her, shortly after the war began, shortly after Denmark had surrendered and the soldiers had moved in overnight to take their places on the corners. One evening, Papa had told her that earlier he was on an errand near his office, standing on the corner waiting across the street, when King Christian came by on his morning ride. One of the German soldiers had turned, suddenly, and asked a question of a teenage boy nearby. Who is that man who rides past here every morning on his horse? The German soldier had asked. Papa said he had smiled to himself, amused that the German soldier didn't know. He listened while the boy answered. He is our king, the boy told the soldier. He is the king of Denmark. Where is his bodyguard? The soldier had asked. And do you know what the boy said? Papa had asked Anne-Marie. She was sitting on his lap. She was little then, only 7 years old. She shook her head, waiting to hear the answer. The boy looked right at the soldier and said, all of Denmark is his bodyguard. Anne-Marie had shivered. It sounded like a very brave answer. Is it true, Papa? She asked. What the boy said? Papa thought for a moment. He always considered questions very carefully before he answered them. Yes, he said at last. It is true. Any Danish citizen would die for King Christian, to protect him. You too, Papa? Yes. And Mama? Mama too. And Derek? No. King Christian, newfound Christian, Orthodox Christian, sister Christian, it don't matter who any of them are. They catch you, you one less bodyguard than you thought. Besides, if all of Denmark is your bodyguards, you ain't missing me. You wouldn't even notice. I'm going to be back at the house eating schnitzel. Is schnitzel just German, or is it, can I have some in Denmark? I like schnitzel. Schnitzel. It's good. It really is. It's pork, though. So I try and limit it. Plus, I haven't had any since I left Germany, but still. Anne-Marie shivered again. Then I would too, Papa, if I had to. They sat silently for a moment. From across the room, Mama watched them, Anne-Marie and Papa, and she smiled. Mama had been crocheting that evening 3 years ago. The lacy edging of a pillowcase, part of Lisa's trousseau. Her fingers moved rapidly, turning the thin white thread into an intricate, narrow border. Lise was a grown-up girl of 18 then, about to be married to Peter Nilsson. That explains why he's part of the resistance. When Lise and Peter married, Mama said, Anne-Marie and Kirsty would have a brother for the very first time. Papa, Anne-Marie had said, finally into the silence. Sometimes I wonder why the king wasn't able to protect us. Why didn't he fight the Nazis so they wouldn't come into Denmark with their guns? Papa sighed. We're such a tiny country, he said, and they're such an enormous enemy. Our king was wise. He knew how few soldiers Denmark had. He knew that many, many Danish people would die if we fought. In Norway they fought, Anne-Marie pointed out. Papa nodded. They fought very fiercely in Norway. They had those huge mountains for the Norwegian soldiers to hide in. Even so, Norway was crushed. In her mind, Anne-Marie had pictured Norway as she remembered it from the map at school, up above Denmark. Norway was pink on the school map. She imagined the pink strip of Norway crushed by a fist. Are there German soldiers in Norway now, the same as here? Yes, Papa said. In Holland, too, Mama added from across the room. In Belgium and France. But not in Sweden, Anne-Marie announced, proud that she knew so much about the world. Sweden was blue on the map, and she had seen Sweden, even though she had never been there. Standing behind Uncle Anrik's house, north of Copenhagen, she had looked across the water, the part of the North Sea that was called the Kattegat, to the land on the other side. That's Sweden you're seeing, Uncle Anrik had told her. You're looking across for another country. That's true, Papa had said. Sweden is still free. And now, 3 years later, it was still true, but much else had changed. King Christian was getting old, and he had been badly injured last year in a fall from his horse, faithful old Jubilee, who had carried him around Copenhagen so many mornings. For days they thought he would die, and all of Denmark had mourned. But he hadn't. King Christian X was still alive. It was Lise who was not. It was her tall, beautiful sister who had died in an accident 2 weeks before her wedding. In the blue car trunk in the corner of this bedroom, Anne-Marie could see its shape even in the dark, were folded Lisa's pillowcases with their crocheted edges, her wedding dress with its hand-embroidered neckline, unworn, and the yellow dress she had worn and danced in, with its full skirt flying, at the party celebrating her engagement to Peter. Mama and Papa never spoke of Lise. They never opened the trunk. But Anne-Marie did from time to time when she was alone in the apartment. Alone, she touched Lisa's things gently, remembering her quiet, soft-spoken sister who had looked forward so to marriage and children of her own. Red-headed Peter. Okay, wow, good. Here we go. Red-headed Peter, her sister's fiancé, had not married anyone in the years since Lisa's death. He had changed a great deal. Once he had been like a fun-loving older brother to Anne-Marie and Kirsty, teasing and tickling, always a source of foolishness and pranks. Now he still stopped by the apartment often, and his greetings to the girls were warm and smiling. But he was usually in a hurry, talking quickly to Mama and Papa about things Anne-Marie didn't understand. He no longer sang the nonsense songs that had once made Anne-Marie and Kirsty shriek with laughter, and he never lingered anymore. Papa had changed too. He seemed much older and very tired, defeated. The whole world had changed. Only the fairy tales remained the same. And they lived happily ever after, Anne-Marie recited, whispering into the dark, completing the tale for her sister, who slept beside her, one thumb in her mouth. Chapter 3. Where is Miss Hirsch? Uh-oh. Here we go. The days of September passed, one after the other, much the same. Anne-Marie and Ellen walked to school together, and home again, always now taking a longer way, avoiding the tall soldier and his partner. Kirsty dawdled just behind them, or scampered ahead, never out of their sight. The two mothers still had their coffee together in the afternoons. They began to knit mittens as the days grew slightly shorter and the first leaves began to fall from the trees, because another winter was coming. Everyone remembered the last one. There was no fuel now for the homes and apartments in Copenhagen, and the winter nights were terribly cold. Like the other families in their buildings, the Johansons had opened the old chimney and installed a little stove to use for heat when they could find coal to burn. Mama used it too, sometimes, for cooking, because electricity was rationed now. At night, they used candles for light. Sometimes Ellen's father, a teacher, complained of frustration because he couldn't see in the dim light to correct the students' papers. "Soon we'll have to add another blanket to your bed," Mama said one morning as she and Anne-Marie tidied the bedroom. "Kirsty and I are lucky to have each other for warmth in the winter," Anne-Marie said. "Poor Ellen, to have no sisters." "She will have to snuggle in with her mama and papa when it gets cold," Mama said, smiling. "I remember when Kirsty slept between you and Papa. She was supposed to stay in her crib, but in the middle of the night she would climb out and get in with you," Anne-Marie said, smoothing the pillows on the bed. Then she hesitated and glanced at her mother, fearful that she had said the wrong thing, the thing that would bring the pained look to her mother's face. The days when little Kirsty slept in Mama and Papa's room were the days when Lise and Anne-Marie shared this bed. But Mama was laughing quietly. "I remember too," she said. "Sometimes she wet the bed in the middle of the night." "I did not," Kirsty said haughtily from the bedroom doorway. "I never, ever did that." Mama, still laughing, knelt and kissed Kirsty on the cheek. "Time to leave for school, girls," she said. She began to button Kirsty's jacket. "Oh dear," she said suddenly. "Look, this button is broken right in half. Anne-Marie, take Kirsty with you after school to the little shop where Miss Hirsch sells threads and buttons. See if you can buy just one to match the others on her jacket. I'll give you some kroner. It shouldn't cost very much." But after school, when the girls stopped at the shop, which had been there as long as Anne-Marie could remember, they found it closed. There was a new padlock on the door and a sign, but the sign was in German. They couldn't read the words. "I wonder if Miss Hirsch is sick," Anne-Marie said as they walked away. "I saw her Saturday," Ellen said. "She was with her husband and their son. They all looked just fine. Or at least the parents looked just fine. The son always looks like a horror," she giggled. Anne-Marie made a face. The Hirsch family lived in the neighborhood, so they had seen the boy, Samuel, often. He was a tall teenager with thick glasses, stooped shoulders, and unruly hair. He rode a bicycle to school, leaning forward and squinting, wrinkling his nose to nudge his glasses into place. His bicycle had wooden wheels, now the rubber tires weren't available, and it creaked and clattered on the street. "I think the Hirsches all went on vacation to the seashore," Kirsty announced. "And I suppose they took a big basket of pink frosted cupcakes with them," Anne-Marie said sarcastically to her sister. "Yes, I suppose they did," Kirsty replied. Anne-Marie and Ellen exchanged looks that meant, "Kirsty is so dumb." No one in Copenhagen had taken a vacation at the seashore since the war began. There was no pink frosted cupcakes. There hadn't been for months. Still, Anne-Marie thought, looking back at the shop before they turned the corner, where was Miss Hirsch? The Hirsch family had gone somewhere. Why else would they close the shop? Mama was troubled when she heard the news. "Are you sure?" she asked several times. "We could find another button someplace," Anne-Marie reassured her. "Or we could take one from the bottom of the jacket and move it up. It won't show very much." But it didn't seem to be the jacket that worried Mama. "Are you sure the sign was in German?" she asked. "Maybe you didn't look carefully." "Mama, it had a swastika on it." Her mother turned away with a distracted look. "Anne-Marie, watch your sister for a few moments and begin to peel the potatoes for dinner. I'll be right back." "Where are you going?" Anne-Marie asked. Her mother started for the door. "I want to talk to Miss Rosen." Puzzled, Anne-Marie watched her mother leave the apartment. She went to the kitchen and opened the door to the cupboard where the potatoes were kept. Every night now, it seemed, they had potatoes for dinner, and very little else. Anne-Marie was almost asleep when there was a light knock at the bedroom door. Candlelight appeared as the door opened, and her mother stepped in. "Are you asleep, Anne-Marie?" "No. Why? Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, but I'd like you to get up and come out to the living room. Peter's here. Papa and I want to talk to you." Anne-Marie jumped out of bed, and Kirsty grunted in her sleep. Peter! She hadn't seen him in a long time. There was something frightening about his being here at night. Copenhagen had a curfew, and no citizens were allowed out after 8 o'clock. It was very dangerous, she knew, for Peter to visit at this time. But she was delighted that he was here. Though his visits were always hurried, they always seemed secret somehow, in a way she couldn't quite put her finger on. Still, it was a treat to see Peter. It brought back memories of happier times. And her parents loved Peter, too. They said he was like a son. Barefoot, she ran into the living room and into Peter's arms. He grinned, kissed her cheek, and ruffled her long hair. "You've grown taller since I last seen you," he told her. "You're all legs." Anne-Marie laughed. "I won the girls' foot race last Friday at school," she told him proudly. "Where have you been? We've missed you." "My work takes me all over," Peter explained. "Look, I brought you something. One for Kirsty, too." He reached into his pocket and handed her 2 seashells. Anne-Marie put the smaller one on the table to save for her sister. She held the other in her hands, turning it in the light, looking at the bridged, pearly surface. It was so like Peter to bring just the right gift. "For your mama and papa, I brought something more practical. 2 bottles of beer." Mama and Papa smiled and raised their glasses. Papa took a sip and wiped the foam from his upper lip. Then his face became more serious. "Anne-Marie," he said, "Peter tells us that the Germans have issued orders closing many stores run by Jews. So this is probably before they actually started taking Jewish people away and the Holocaust began." Yeah. Why the heck were y'all reading this book in 6th grade? Anyhow, Jews, Anne-Marie repeated. "Is Miss Hirsch Jewish? Is that why the button shop is closed? Why have they done that?" Peter leaned forward. "It's their way of tormenting. For some reason, they want to torment Jewish people. It's happened in the other countries. They have taken their time here. They've let us relax a little, but now it seems to be starting." "But why the button shop? What harm is a button shop? Miss Hirsch is such a nice person. Even Samuel, he's a dope, but he would never harm anyone. How could he? He can't even see with his thick glasses." Then Anne-Marie thought of something else. "If they can't sell their buttons, how would they earn a living?" "Friends will take care of them," Mama said gently. "That's what friends do." Anne-Marie nodded. Mama was right, of course. Friends and neighbors would go to the home of the Hirsch family, would take them fish and potatoes and bread and herbs for making tea. Maybe Peter would even take them a beer. They would be comfortable until their shop was allowed to open again. Then suddenly she sat upright, her eyes wide. "Mama," she said. "Papa, the Rosens are Jewish too." Her parents nodded, their faces serious and drawn. "I talked to Sophie Rosen this afternoon after you told me about the button shop," Mama said. "She knows what's happening, but she doesn't think it'll affect them." Anne-Marie thought and understood. She relaxed. "Mr. Rosen doesn't have a shop. He's a teacher. They can't close a whole school." She looked at Peter with the question in her eyes. "Can they?" "First, they came for the communists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. First They Came, by Martin Niemöller. Niemöller seems like a Dutch last name too, by the way. I'm gonna check on that real quick, because that sounds like what's happening here. I mean, the Rosens are Jewish, obviously, so they wouldn't just sit back and be like the Hirsches, that wouldn't happen to us. But if they're sounding like they're saying that wouldn't happen to us, so. Oh no, German theologian, and Lutheran pastor. So he grew up in Germany, was born in Lippstadt, Germany. But it could still be "I think the Rosens will be all right," he said. "But you keep an eye on your friend Ellen. And stay away from the soldiers. Your mother told me about what happened on Oster Brigade. Anne-Marie shrugged. She had almost forgotten the incident. It was nothing. They were only bored and looked for someone to talk to, I think. She turned to her father. Papa, do you remember what you heard the boy say to the soldier? That all of Denmark would be the king's bodyguard? Her father smiled. I have never forgotten it, he said. Well, Anne-Marie said slowly, I think now that all of Denmark must be bodyguards for the Jews as well. So we shall be, Papa replied. Peter stood. I must go, he said. And you, Longlegs, it's way past your bedtime now. He hugged Anne-Marie again. Later, once more in her bed beside the warm cocoon of her sister, Anne-Marie remembered how her father had said 3 years before that he would die to protect the king. That her mother would too. And Anne-Marie, 7 years old, had announced proudly that she also would. Now she was 10, with long legs and no more silly dreams of pink frosted cupcakes. And now she and all the Danes were to be bodyguards for Ellen and Ellen's parents and all of Denmark's Jews. Would she die to protect them? Truly? Anne-Marie was honest enough to admit, there in the darkness, to herself, that she wasn't sure. For a moment she felt frightened, but she pulled the blanket up higher around her neck and relaxed. It was all imaginary anyway, not real. It was only in the fairy tales that people were called upon to be brave, to die for one another. Not in real life Denmark. Oh, there were the soldiers, that was true. And the courageous resistance leaders who sometimes lost their lives, that was true too. But ordinary people like the Rosens and the Johansons? Anne-Marie admitted to herself, snuggling there in the quiet dark, that she was glad to be an ordinary person who would never be called upon for courage. Yeah, I see where this is leading. Don't appreciate it at all. I was your lover and your secretary. 'Cause I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna shed no tears. Two things. One, there was a book I read when I was in the 6th grade. While y'all were reading this, I don't know what it is about us. Maybe I was in the 7th grade. It was Night. That's literally what it was called. It was called Night. And it was a really heartbreaking book. It's like a true story of a young man and his father and their family, Eli Wiesel, who were essentially his experience in the Holocaust, in the concentration camp. And it is harrowing and it is heartbreaking, and I don't recommend it to anyone, but I recommend it to everyone. And the second thing is, there's this game called This War of Ours, which if you get an opportunity to play, you definitely should. It's a continuing saga of a family who's living in a wartime city, a war-torn city, and just struggling to survive, about the people who are living in these places where everybody else is at war. So when you play Call of Duty, you're like the soldier. You're like the one who's in the war. You're in the midst of it. But this is about the families who are sneaking around trying to find bread and keep their families safe from starvation and stuff like that. So if you get a chance, you should definitely play it. This book ain't gonna break me. I don't even care. I don't even care. It ain't. Anissa. 916-633-1537. Ratchet and Ratchet at gmail.com. Ratchet Book Club on Twitter. Ratchet Book Club on Facebook. You can leave a review on Spotify. It takes like 13 seconds. You can also leave a review on Podchaser. Copy and paste that into Apple Podcasts. And then copy and paste that into the Good Pods app. You can donate to the show at patreon.com/singlesimulcast. $1 will get you a ton of content. You can also donate to the show at buymeacoffee.com/sscast or on the Good Pods app. You can leave a tip in the tip jar. Thank you so much for listening. I greatly appreciate it. Y'all be good. I'm going to holler at you later. Peace. The intro and outro to Ratchet Book Club is by That Kid Garan, and it's called Goodbyes. You can email him at tkgbeats94@gmail.com for more information on how to lease this beat.
This is Single Simulcast.